is not guilty. Breaking news. Sean P. Diddy Combs is not guilty. Okay. He's been rated of 3 of the 5 charges, but none of the egregious charges. So he was not guilty on count 1, which was, let me see here, coercion, sex trafficking stuff. Not guilty, but he's been found guilty on, let me see here, prostitution. Okay. So it's looking like at sentencing, he may get time served. So let's get into it. So let me, Sean P. Diddy Combs, the one-time global hip hop titan, whose criminal unveiled harrowing testimony against him of sexual abuse against women and forced drug dazed freak-offs, was acquitted on Wednesday. About that. He was acquitted on Wednesday of racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking, but found guilty on the lesser charges. But they didn't even mention it in the article. But the charges that he's been guilty of is 2 different charges. He's only been guilty of 1 charge, and that's transportation to engage in prostitution. Transportation to engage in prostitution. So think about that. Let me see here. The jury's verdict delivered on the 3rd deliberations declared Sean P. Diddy Combs, 55, not guilty on 1 count of racketeering, conspiracy, and 2 counts of sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, but found guilty on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. He's been found guilty on 1 charge to engage in prostitution. Now, at sentencing, the prostitution transportation charges carries a maximum 10-year prison, but he's going to go home with time served, or he's going to have some type of ankle monitor or something like that. So he's been found not guilty. So when the defense, and I need your thoughts on this, like I said, we're having a conversation today because I have a strange feeling. You know, when the defense attorneys pretty much closed in 20 minutes, that means the federal court or the government did not prove their case. So we got to understand, like, the government is not smarter than the private sector. The government is not wiser than the private sector, because when you got gifts and you got talents, you will not sacrifice your gifts and your talents just to be a part of an organization or operation that's pretty much going to hand you and force you to do things that you really don't want to do. Because I know without shove a doubt, the attorneys that pretty much had to prosecute Diddy, I'm sure that they didn't want to do it. But if you are a prosecutor, you a state, you know, they pretty much tell you, hey, you got the case and you got to go ahead and do it. Just like Marsha Clark and them with O.J. Simpson. But Sean P. Diddy Combs is not guilty. And I believe on sentencing that he's going to go home with her, because the only thing that they found him guilty of is pretty much 1 count of, let me see here, transportation to engage in prostitution, meaning he sent for a prostitute. All the other cases and everything else was found not guilty on all the egregious charges. I'm going to read it again. Sean P. Diddy Combs, the one-time global hip hop titan, whose criminal trial unveiled harrowing testimony accusing him of sexual abuse with women by force and drug-dazed freak-offs, was acquitted on Wednesday on racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking, but found guilty on the leastest of the leastest charge, and that's pretty much transportation to engage prostitution. Somebody put, what the F? Absolutely. P. Diddy is found not guilty and exonerated on all those egregious charges. All of them, except the one guilty on to engage in prostitution. So he pretty much got a count. He's been charged out of all of this. How much money did the state waste? How much money did the government waste on this? And he's only been found guilty just prostitution. Transportation to engage in prostitution. That he was found not guilty on, let me see here, racketeering, not guilty on conspiracy, not guilty on trafficking. The only thing he's found guilty of is transportation engaged in prostitution. Now, somebody put in the comments that, let me see here, he's still doing time 10 to 20 years. Nah, that's that. Like I said, from a pro bono perspective, I will be able to get Puffy off on an ankle monitor. Okay. He's not doing any time, because if you charge him and give him 10 to 20 years for transportation to engage in prostitution, then you are president for every human being that pretty much has solicited prostitution. And that's not the case. It's a slap on the wrist, and it will actually be his first offense. So he's going home. He's going home. So, like I said, this is a reckoning. We got to really understand what's really going on in this world, because he was pretty much, they sought after him because he had so much data and information and tapes and things of nature to pretty much, throw a lot of powerful people under the. So they did all of this, and it was all a publicity stunt to pretty much make sure that nobody else gets involved, because all of the freak off tapes and all of the things that he had when they raided his home, clearly, this was a situation where the government said it's a whole lot of powerful people involved. So make sure that, you guys go ahead and raid both his homes, and, you go get his, go get that, go get it. And they pretty much took all the evidence, because we didn't see any of the evidence. We don't know who's participated in the freak offs. They didn't show none of that. They just showed a whole bunch of, stuff that will pretty much make him look bad. And now that he's found not guilty, and somebody put in the comments, and could you imagine his first words going to say, what he's going to say when he gets out? The first thing he's going to say when he get out, and this is, like I said, I'm setting it up. He going to say, man, baby oil back. Give me all my baby oil, because that's the only evidence that they got. They showed us is bottles of baby oil, and like I said, yeah, they could be laced. I don't know, but he didn't get charged for that. Think about it. He's found guilty on racketeering, not guilty on conspiracy, not guilty on sex trafficking. The only thing P. Diddy is guilty of is transportation to engage in prostitution. And that's not even a crime, because the prostitutes, it's a prostitute, she does that willingly. So they pretty much charge him pretty much sending, some not state to state, but just pretty much paying for a cab or paying for Uber or a Lyft or a black car. Let's transport prostitutes to the function. And that's the only thing they got him on. And this is crazy. This is crazy. Let me see here. Somebody put it. He's going to say, let's freak off. Yes, after they give me my baby oil back. Let me see here in the comments. And he will make millions on the story. Yes, because he defeated the federal government, they doing all of this with the migrants and the deportations and talking about, we're in the red when it comes to government spending. How much did they, in this case, for this man to be not guilty on racketeering, not guilty on conspiracy, not guilty on sex trafficking? And they just pumped up 2 charges that they found him guilty on. And that's basically guilty of transportation to prostitution. How many men in this world have, came to LA, New York, Chicago, Las Vegas, and, went and found an escort service or something that says, send me somebody to the room? They're charging Puffy with paying for her transportation or his transportation. That's crazy, because during the case, when they to the bruiser, they pretty much asked him, and I heard some sound bites on that. They asked him, when you were, solicited by P. Diddy for the freak offs and to sleep with Cassie. So what transportation did P. Diddy supply, or how did you get to the function? That man said, hey, P. Diddy didn't get me to the function willingly. I'm from Brooklyn. I took a cab. And I sat back and said, man, that case is over. They wasted our time, because P. Diddy, if you just tapping in, not guilty on conspiracy, not guilty on racketeering, not guilty on sex trafficking. And he found guilty for paying for a prostitute's transportation to arrive to the function. And that's crazy. Let me see here in the comments. He better turn to God after this. He already turned to God. I guarantee you. Remember, let me see here. Papa Delia. So I guarantee you, because remember, he changed his name to Love. He started throwing up the L. And then he had a Breakfast Club interview where he was talking about, specifically supporting the tribe, and we need our political party. Kamala Harris campaign that you can't use my vote or die or anything like that. So this is why they did what they did. And then, the videos are surfacing, with him and Obama and Oprah and all of these. So basically what they did, they raided that man, stole his data and his information, charged him, didn't even let him get out. And now they're pretty much looking stupid right now. Okay, because of all of this. All of the chaos, not guilty on racketeering, not guilty on sex trafficking. And the only thing he's found guilty of is paying for transportation for prostitution. That's it. Let me see here. Diddy loves kissing them bots' tongue. What is that? I don't know. Let me see here. Yeah, man. Hoes choose to Be, hoes choose. Exactly. They fly into Baltimore. He's saying in the comments, they fly into Miami. They fly into Vegas. It's Super Bowl weekend. So only thing Puffy has been charged with is paying for their transportation. Crazy. Good morning to you. Good morning to you. So Diddy has black privilege. So listen, Diddy is pretty much the case study for black privilege, because now we can see that a black man can defeat the government, that a black man can defeat the state on a global. This is the biggest case of the century, and he defeated him because they tried to charge him with racketeering, conspiracy, and sex, and all of that, and he's been found not guilty. This is crazy. And I'm in these comments. You see here, what about the girl he was beating on camera? So that was Cassie. So listen, that Cassie situation, he wasn't charged for that with his court civil case in which he paid her, an unlimited amount of money, over $30 million. So that had nothing to do with this case. They just showed that because they showed that he is an abusive man. Okay. But that was a civil case that had nothing to do with the federal government or the state. So when he beat Cassie, yes, he's abusive. We know that. He beat Cassie, kicked her, all of that stuff. We all saw that. But that had nothing to do with this case. Cassie out, and he pretty much, moved on from that. Okay. Apologized. He didn't get charged for that. Secondly, we know he's abusive. Number two, we know he a freak. They have freak offs. And somehow he love that baby oil. Right now, he pretty much saying, when I get out, y'all got to give me all my baby oil back. Because like I said, the state did not prove their case. The state of New York right now is looking crazy right now. And this is why your high-priced attorneys is in the private sector. Okay, when you a prosecutor, you work for the state, you pretty, literally don't have no talent. And they take you and make you what they want you to be, with the talent or not, because you got to do what they tell you to do. And this is why, Kamala Harris, she was a prosecutor and all of that stuff. So it is what it is. So Cassie got cashed out, and but Cassie turned out, through the text messages and all of that, down with the program. She loved the freak offs, the bruiser, the male prostitute. He pretty much, went to social media sites and pretty much talked about that his relationship with Cassie at first. And he would see an individual in the dark shadows watching as he would perform sex with Cassie. And she told him, DJ and all of that, while another person was in the background. But then the bruiser said after the third or fourth time, he didn't know who he was because he would wear a mask or a KK outfit or, crazy stuff. But he knew he was over there in the corner pleasuring himself while he was watching Cassie get freaked down by the bruiser. And they asked him, has he been with Cassie by himself? He said on several occasions. And then one time Cassie called him to pull up, wasn't available. And he was with his wife or his girlfriend at the time. And he pretty much went on record and said, and this is the bruiser, he went on record and said he wasn't available. And she basically said, can you send somebody else? He canceled his vacation and made it, back to pleasure Cassie. But he said he felt some type of way because he thought that they had a connection. He just wanted somebody to come and do the little freak off with her. So he went on record and said that he broke that off and he went on and did his thing. But at the end of the day, the prosecution clearly didn't prove its case because the defense, took 20 minutes and pretty much closed, and the defense didn't even call any witnesses. So free Diddy. And at the end of the day, it is what it is. And I don't want to get flagged, but I'm going to go ahead and play this right now. Not guilty. That's all I'm going to play right there. Not guilty. They tried to charge him, but he's not guilty. So like he's abusive. I'm sure he reconciled with God. I'm sure he repented. I'm sure being, isolated and going through what he went, I'm sure. But at the end of the day, just like you and me, repent because the kingdom is at hand. And once you repent, move on from your wicked ways. But he got enough resources. He has enough put away so he can actually be a participant in what's going on moving forward, because to see a black man get exonerated, like I said, it's fulfilling. Okay. Because, it was the OJ trial. It didn't even have anything to do with Nicole Brown. It was just the fact that a black man defeated the big beast, and that's the federal government, and in this case, the state of New York, because Sean Diddy Combs has been found not guilty and exonerated of racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking. And the only thing that he's charged with is paying the cab fare of a prostitute. And it basically says he's guilty on transportation to engage in prostitution. So if he didn't pay for the ride, he would be 100% off. So this is what I'm saying. And they're trying to say that he could get some time with this. Now, this is something that they just made up because they, after the case, they pretty much dropped, certain charges, and they were trying to coerce the jury into finding him guilty on something. So this is when they put in, transportation to engage in prostitution. Okay. But what crime is that? Prostitution is literally legal. Okay. I drive up and down Figueroa anytime I go downtown. We call it scenic route. They out there butt boot, naked. Ain't nobody tripping off that. So they basically charging him for paying for the cab, the lift, the car, and that's crazy. So let me see here. I was at a Diddy party. I passed out with baby oil. So hey, you should have testified. But at the end of the day, found not guilty on any of that stuff. So maybe it wasn't the baby oil. Maybe somebody spiked the drink. I don't know. Like I said, I can't clear this up. If somebody put in there what is happening, P has been found not guilty on racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking. And the only thing that they charged him with that he's been found guilty is transportation to engage in prostitution, meaning he paid the cab fare, the lift fare, a plane ticket or something just to engage in prostitution. That's the only thing that they found him guilty of. So this is crazy. Let me see somebody put in the comments. The Fed case wasn't as strong as they thought. The Fed case was whack because anybody that they called just pretty much said that, hey, he a freak. I pulled up and we got freaky dicky together. Didn't nobody say anything about the freak offs. They were talking about his character. Oh, he's this and he's controlling and he's this and he's that. And then, okay. But Cassie case, we know he's abusive. He put hands on her, but that was a civil case, had nothing to do with a criminal element. And he basically paid her off. Nothing to do with this case. So basically, he's a freak. Okay. And it's a whole lot of abusive freaks out there because I'm sure a lot of women got a whole bunch of stories. And somebody put in the comments, Cassie got paid. Yes, paid. She got paid a grip. Absolutely. Rico was going too far. Let me see. And I agree with you, Al Bundy. The Rico, like I said, they were trying to just railroad this guy. They had a Rico racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, and basically they pulled Rico out with the jury instructions. So basically, let me see here. It's like I said, this is crazy. I mean, this is crazy because Sean P. Diddy has been found not guilty. Clearly the Rico, the racketeering conspiracy, not guilty. Sex trafficking, not guilty. The only thing he's been guilty that he was found guilty of is paying for the Lyft, the Uber, or the black car or plane flight, or for a prostitute to be transported to engage in prostitution. So he paid a prostitute to come on in, and that's the only charge that that the jury came back and found him guilty on. It is what it is. Let me see. So they say way too much. Well, like I said, sometimes you don't say enough. But this was a situation where they tried to railroad this brother. And let me see, Al Bundy. Let me see, eating a woman on CCTV, though. It's hard to see how he's innocent of abuse. So let me educate you right now. This case had nothing to do with abuse, Mr. Al Bundy. Nothing to do with abuse. This case was with Cassie only, Cassie Ventura only. He paid her off. She sued him on a civil case. He paid her 50 plus millions of dollars for that case. So this particular case had nothing to do with it. This was a racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking case, which he was found not guilty on all those charges. And the only thing he was found guilty of is paying for the transportation for a prostitute to show up and function. That's it. Let me see here. Somebody put in such BS. Puffy, Diddy is a punk. Hey, like I said, that's how you feel. I understand. But hey, like I said, the man got off, bro. The man, let me see here. He got off. Hold up. and give him his money and his baby oil back. He not guilty. Let me see here. Let me see here. Well, get him the OJ way. Let me see here. He already pretty much paid off. So this is the case. So OJ, the civil suit, he was found innocent on the Nicole Brown Simpson murder trial. So, but they sued him civilly after the case and he lost that. But think about the cat case. He already broke her off. He already paid for that. So now he just waiting to get sentenced, and what it's looking like is going to be time served. And I'm not even a lawyer, but I'm sure me personally, I could get him off on a probe and pretty much have him going home at worst with an ankle monitor. At worst. Okay. At worst. Let me see here. Johnson & Johnson is happy again. So listen, man, I had a conversation with some colleagues yesterday, and that's the same thing we said, that he's going to the Johnson commercials, because it pretty much, the joke is, the first thing that Puffy's going to get back, when he gets exonerated or gets to walk, he going to basically now give me all my baby oil back. All of it. Let me see here. You could get him off. Oh yeah, he got off. He's the case. He's won. He's been exonerated. The only thing he's guilty of is, transportation to engage in prostitution. So for me, get him off that, because listen, I can look at any case and I'm sure that there's nobody on this planet charged or in jail right now for pretty much paying for a call girl to get to their location. It's not even a case study for that. So this is the only thing that they could put in there that the jury would agree on. So literally, if you take that, transportation to engage in prostitution, which is a misdemeanor, you take that off, this man is exonerated. He could walk out of the courtroom right now, but the state want to save face. The state of New York, want to save face, and they want to make sure that, they control the situation. It is what it is. It is what it is. Those two charges can land him in jail. He's already in jail. Think about it. So those two charges can be time served. Bye-bye. Think about that. So the news and the media is going to spin it in a way where, and you can see how they're not always right. It seems like the media is wrong and they put the propaganda out there and just flood the market, and we don't know what to believe, because look at what's going on with Trump. We thought the tariff was going to be bad. They're reporting that the United States have received $8.8 billion in tariff revenue. Think about that. Eggs is down. Think about it. Crime is down. Think about that. The southern border is shut down. But if you listen to the media, doom and gloom, and they want to use fear tactics and scare everybody. Yeah, they don't even know about. Let me see. He's going to snort Ciroc. Hey, he probably get his own liquor brand, called Not Guilty, and pretty much capitalize. What you want? Not guilty. So listen, man, this is crazy. The state of New York should be ashamed of themselves. And if they could railroad, Puffy, they could railroad. And, Sean P. Diddy Combs has the resources to fight the case. A lot of times they sit back and, they'll put some charges in front of us, and then we ended up pleading no contest or and then they'll just arrest us. Okay. But when you have resources, you could put yourself in a position to do what this man did, and that's exonerate himself. And somebody put here, Diddy won. Thanks all. I want to know. That's what it is. Diddy won. What's the man? And let me see. What's the Man Act minimum? I'm in these comments right now. Diddy better get a shank. Okay. Well, he's in protective custody, and I guarantee you, anybody if he does contact, or if he is in close proximity with individual, I'm sure that they eating good. I'm sure that they well taken care of. That's what you do when you got bread like that. You make sure you cool. And if anything to them, it would be an inside job. So think about that. So you right about that. You're on something. And who said that? Did he better get a shank? And that's a Murder Posse film crew. You're right. It is what it is. Let me see here. The state of New York, that is federal. Okay. Hey, he beat the federal case. He did. Let me see here. You don't want to mention that each charge carries up to 10 years. I mentioned that. It charges up to 10 years. But the talking point, and this is to prove my point, it is up to 10 years. But what's the minimum? If it's up to 10 years, then it's down to what? A year, 6 months. So this is why it's time served. So this is how it makes it happen. This is how it makes it happen. It is what it is. Let me see here. Boosie went in. Let me see here. Let me see here. Diddy coming out today. Hey, possibly, but I would say not, because they have to have a sentencing. So his lawyers are going to have in there and have a conversation and put some type of, they're going to have some dialogue and plead with the judge and have conversations with the judge in closed sessions. Okay, because of the sentencing. Those two charges do have up to 10 years because the person who commented 100% right. But this is the talking point, and this is the trick that they do. How you guilty on 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution? That just makes it look good. That's propaganda, because the only thing that he was charged with was guilty of transportation to engage in prostitution. Twice. Same charge. See, same charge. Okay. And somebody in 5 years is a minimum per Google. That's fine and all, but when you look at in terms of law, there's a term called discretion. Okay. And his discretion, because as a judge, you have the power to pretty much allow him to go home. In LA, there was an individual that got unalived named Latasha Harling. She was shot in the back of the head by a store worker. Okay. And the Korean store worker was found guilty, but the judge decided, she's not a threat, and she did no time in her home. So it could go either way, but in the sense of guilty of transportation, think about that. How many men has called a call girl? So you telling me somebody got a minimum 5 years in jail for paying for the transportation for a prostitute to get to his hotel? Okay. Propaganda. It is what it is. And propaganda is pretty much you flood the market with lies and manipulation where nobody knows what to believe. They'll argue and debate. But at the end of the day, the judge has the power of the pen to use discretion, and he's not a threat to society. And what I'm saying is to make it make sense, because he's only been found guilty of, you could say 1 count, 2 count, but paying for the transportation for a prostitute to arrive at the function. That's the only thing he's guilty of. The only thing. So you could do a 5-year suspended sentence, a 5-year, probationary period. But P. Diddy will not be sitting in this prison come this fall. The man is going home. He's guilty of nothing. The state of New York didn't prove nothing. Now, and a lot of people always see the Cassie Ventura, but that case, that has nothing to do with this particular case. The state picked case, did its press conference, and then we're going to charge Puffy with a RICO, racketeering, conspiracy, section, and he's been found not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. And the only thing he's guilty of, paying for the transportation for a prostitute to arrive. And the correct term of it is what it says on the document is pretty much transportation to engage in prostitution, meaning he sent his driver to pick up a prostitute. It is what it is. Pay a heavy fine. Like I said, he offered them $50 million to actually, to get out on bail. So, you want to get out today, run that 50 million because you just cost the state of New York. We don't know at all. Let me see here. It's not the state, it's the federal. Understood. But when I say the state, because he's in federal court in the state of New York. OK, so you're 100% right. He defeated the federal government. So the federal government needs to be ashamed of themselves, just like Alvin Bragg James. It is what it is. And somebody put in the comment, it's called karma. OK, let me see here. Weeks wrecks of guilt. Like I said, he is what it is. And we all know that he got right with God. Think about it. He changed his name to Love. He was trying to switch the game up. The only thing that got Puffy in trouble is that he did not support or allow his influence to be utilized by the Democrats, because when he went on the Breakfast Club, and you can go ahead and look it up on YouTube, he went on the Breakfast Club and he said that why is it that the black race, we the ones that, they're pumping the drugs to the community and poverty and all that, owe us reparations. He said it's time for us to look out just for the tribe, the black. We need our own political party. He said that during the 2024 presidential election. And a week after that, the Cassie tape surfaces. OK, because they contacted him to pretty much that vote or die in which he owned. Remember, with Obama vote or die campaign and all of that, he didn't let them do that because, like I said, black community just was not feeling the Democratic Party and Kamala Harris. And we're literally done politically with both parties. We got to figure this thing out. But it's a good thing, for them to try to do what they did. And the media just made it a frenzy. But then now they got it, bad right now because the man is found innocent. The man is innocent, exonerated on racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking, and all of those other ones they didn't even put on the, they don't put them out there because just imagine they had 10 different things they were charging him with. And after the defense, pretty much closed this case, the prosecution decided, let's go ahead and take, some of these charges off. OK, because he would have been found not guilty on all of it. I'm going to do another and I'm going to find, what he was originally charged with versus that he got off, because right now they're just saying he's acquitted of racketeering, conspiracy and sex trafficking. But there was a whole lot of other charges on there that they took off, and somehow they was able to add 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution, meaning I send my driver, hey, go pick that hoe up. I sent my driver to go pick up a prostitute to come to this function willingly, not against her will, a paid prostitute to come and service me and pretty much be a part of this freak off. And that's what they charged with, pretty much guiding transportation for the prostitutes and hoes that come to the function. That's the only thing that they found him guilty of. That's crazy. So let me see here. Martin, not guilty doesn't mean innocent. Remember that. Totally. He's not innocent of none of these things. The freak offs, the baby oil, he gassy, all of that. Nobody said he's innocent, but the state or the federal government did not prove his case because they pumped the charges up on like this man is running a criminal enterprise. Okay, he's transportation, he's drug trafficking and sex trafficking and all of that. Nah, he didn't do none of that. He just did the freak offs, And like I said, the first thing he gonna say when he get up out of there is give me all my baby oil back. It's crazy. It is what it is. He's a pimp. Nah, he's not a pimp. Nah, he's not a pimp. He pretty much, a pimp's in the hoe. Somebody put in he's a pimp. A pimp, sends the female and the female go out and do her thing. And then she come back and get the money to the pimp. Puffy paid them off for their services. Thank you for your time. Go home. He solicited prostitution. That's what, should have been one of the charges. But he basically saying, he provided transportation for the prostitute. So he clearly not a pimp. And Miss Sandra put in he's a freak. That's all he is. An abusive freak. He beat up females, and which had nothing to do with this case. He's a freak. Okay, because the Bruiser, I watched some of those interviews and he said, man, Puffy be in the back, putting the lighting and all of that and watching him, as Cassie and do all kinds of things. And he said Puffy be over there, pleasuring himself. And they called the male prostitute, his name is the Bruiser. OK, and he said he was taking all types of supplements, male enhancement, just to pretty much so he could perform. And he showed up and shout. He even said that he ended a vacation with his girlfriend because Cassie called and wanted to have a little freak off session. And he was out of town. And Cassie said to him, and he said it hurt his feelings. Cassie said to him, can you send somebody else? He looked at his girlfriend and said, hey, there's been an emergency. I got to go. He wanted that bread. OK, and he wanted to do his thing. And he was hogging Cassie, too, because he said that she told him, don't come inside of me. Make sure you pull out and then you just ejaculate, around my. And Puffy in the corner, just loving it. Just loving it. Let me see here. How long do you think the sentence will be? And let me see here. And that's Vince. Vince, I totally believe that going to get off on, they're going to give him a 3.5 to 5 year suspended sentence, probation, and with a ankle monitor. Okay, that's what I believe. I don't think, transportation to engage in prostitution will get you, more than 6 months in jail. I mean, that's not, an egregious crime. Okay. Especially if they were not able to find him guilty on the harsh charges. Okay. So I think he's going to get time served because he's been in jail for what, close to a year now. And probation and the ankle monitor. So I think he's going to get time served, and I think he's going to walk, and whatever he agree with. And if they do give him time, a 3-year, 4-year sentence, he'll be able to pay his way out. Like Tupac, that 1.2 million, Tupac got jail. So they probably charge him a $2.5 million fine, time served, with probation, That's what I believe. It is what it is. Let me see here. Oh my God, why don't you stop talking about Diddy? This is what this reaction is about. This is a reaction video to Diddy being found not guilty. So tap in tomorrow in politics. I apologize, but right now we're specifically talking about being found not guilty on conspiracy, sex trafficking, and racketeering. Okay. And for $5 a month from a perspective, I'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. So stay tuned for that. Let me see. Love your channel, bro. I appreciate you. And that's Mr. Dixon. I appreciate you on that. Let me see here. So guilty, he should go to jail for life. Nah, he should. And, that's an opinion, but then it's been found not guilty. So, and I believe he's going to go home, when they do the sentencing on what we would call a suspended sentence. He's going to pay a fine. He's going to walk and more likely have an ankle monitor. Here, the jury was afraid. Hey, it's a possibility. I don't know what goes on, but it is a possibility. And let me see here. Miss Tina said, let me see. What did Miss Tina say? I knew he was going to walk. They didn't prove any of the charges. Should have had some victims of the charges testify. I agree with you wholeheartedly, 100%, because when I saw the defense, I'm like, okay, I want to see what the defense got to say. They rested after 20 minutes and didn't bring in any witnesses. I said, man, the federal government did not prove their case. Okay. And they corrected me. It's a federal case. So I'm gonna stop saying it's a state case. The federal government did not prove its case clearly. Okay. And they should have allowed other individuals to testify. Let me see here. Christina. Amen. Yes, I agree. He needs to worry about saving his soul. He still got the biggest trial coming. Amen. We all got judgment day coming. Okay. Because when Jesus started preaching, he said, the first thing he said, repent because the kingdom of heaven is at hand. And I'm sure P. Diddy, Sean, Love, whatever you want to call him, had time to get his right with God. And clearly he was trying to change his life. But when you sell your soul, to the devil, you sell your soul to the Illuminati, to the industry, they're not just going to let you just flip. So this was their best try to pretty much destroy an individual. And all they did was pretty much just, set themselves up because the federal government, lost that trial. And P. Diddy, was acquitted on racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking. Anything that they found him guilty on was, sending for a prostitute or sending a car or allowing, paying for a prostitute, transportation to go to the freak off. Let me see here. Use your comment. Karma has come to him. Well, karma will come to everybody. I'm in these comments. Let me see here. Does someone own Diddy content when it comes to Diddy? I don't think so. He's his own brand. It is what it is. And when was the last time? Let me see here that you've been to the doctor. Okay. Well, I got my checkup, about 2 weeks ago. Okay. 54 year, strong and healthy. Just left the gym today. Okay, doing my thing. It is what it is. So the people in the comments, man, I appreciate y'all. Happened. So Diddy is found guilty, not guilty. Diddy is found not guilty on racketeering, conspiracy, sex trafficking on his federal trial. With that being said, thanks for tapping in. The man going home. Peace out.